Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon, tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
What are you drinking?
Well, I'm in a hotel, a little limited on the bourbon selection, so I just went for the standard Woodford Reserve, which I don't even know if I've ever drank it on the podcast, but it used to always be my go-to. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and it's a good, consistent pour. Most hotels or someplace will have it, so.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say that's probably the most common premium brand that you see places?
I would think so, yeah. What are you drinking on?
Well, I don't know if I drank this one on here before. It's a Santa Teresa Venezuelan rum.
You sound very cultured when you say it that way.
Well, trying to be the citizen of the world that drinking $30 Venezuelan rum makes you.
Yeah.
But it's a Solera. Oh, this is the one I said it before. They call it triple age, and I don't know even what that means. But
so that's Venezuelan. I bought a bottle of that Diplomatico.
Yes.
And it's Venezuelan. How are we getting stuff from Venezuela? I thought there were embargoes and stuff on Venezuela.
Oh, I don't know. Might be that it was here. It might be stuff on the shelves from a while ago, too. I don't know. I like Venezuelan. I like that Diplomatico. That's good stuff.
Well, I interrupted you. Tell me about this stuff. How do you like it?
Oh, yeah, it's good. It's just really nice. The smoothness of these rums, and I think that they do stuff with it. I think your neighbor one time told me that some of these add sugar after the fact, and I'm sure they do, that levels stuff out. But man, for not a lot of money, you can get a really nice sipper.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's so many now. There's so many really good bourbon or rums you see on the shelf.
Yeah.
It sounds like there is some stuff that they do let through. I guess it's mainly the petroleum that has the sanctions. I guess they don't care about rum. Maybe. Well, I think it's saying if the brand or distributor is not tied to a sanctioned Venezuelan government entity. Interesting.
Okay.
So you can't drink. You can't get oil, but you can get rum.
We've been out of pocket for a little bit between the both of us, kind of busy, and thinking we should maybe try to keep pretty topical. Now, there's a lot we could talk about, government shutdown, things like that. But I think that of all of the noise that we hear, Gaza and the things that are going on there have, I think, the biggest potential to have long-term positive impact on the world, I hope.
There's positive elements, but then, man, it certainly seems a tenuous agreement of any kind. I mean, getting that. Although what I thought was amazing is they said that I don't know if you saw the interviews, but the negotiators at one point, the Qatari and Israeli negotiators, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but it's like the people that, I don't know if it was Hamas or it's Qatar. I thought it was Qatari and Israeli negotiators. When they came to agreement, they all hugged each other. It's like, man, that's pretty significant.
Well, I can remember would have been, 93 when Arafat shook hands with, who was that?
Yeah, was that Sharon?
Yeah. Yeah. Which didn't fix everything, but it was still pretty nice to see, Yeah. Kind of powerful moments. It's weird because I think you probably if you've got good negotiators, you got people that, like, those are people that are looking for a solution, right? Those are people that want to make things better. Unfortunately, with a lot of conflicts, this is a notable example of that. I hate to sound like a cynic, but there are a lot of people that do not want it to change, that are perfectly happy with the status quo.
Well, what was the big thing after they released the hostages? You know, Hamas starts executing sympathizers in the streets. Okay, this is great. Good job, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. It really is a thing. I think we've talked about it here a little bit. It's a really kind of an insane history of why we are where we are with this. Maybe some of our listeners haven't really paid attention to it. You had, obviously from biblical times, the territory of Israel, historically the home place of the Jewish people, although the diaspora started, I mean, way back during Roman times with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. The Romans were, really attacked Jewish society. And so there was this diaspora. And that's why you wind up with Jewish populations in all over Europe. Prior to World War II, the German and especially Polish Jewish communities. There's huge, huge communities there. Spain, there's a long-standing community there. But in the aftermath of World War II, and most of the people that remained that were living in the territory of Palestine/Israel were of Arabic descent, Palestinians. It's interesting that is, we think of it mostly as a Muslim issue, but there are a lot of Christian Palestinians too. But after World War II, there was a lot of agreement on the world stage that the Jewish people needed a homeland, and they just created it kind of without the regard for the people that are there. And now we have this thing where the Palestinians feel like they've been disrespected and booted from their homeland, but the Israelis think that it's their homeland. I think it's interesting, how we got here, that you have two completely different populations, both of whom think that they have ancestral rights to this land.
There's a little similarity with Native Americans. I mean, yes, there were Palestinians living there. There was no state. There's no established government or sovereignty or anything else. So it's kind of like a lot of these conflicts that we talk about, or you see in the news, it's kind of like our conversations about Ukraine. It's like, okay, well, that's Russian. Okay, well, it was Ukraine before, and then it was Russian. It seems like almost a bit of a fool's errand to sit there and try to say, well, this belongs to so-and-so, and this is this person's land. I mean, we are where we are. All these people are in these places, and they got to figure out how to live together,
Yeah. But I think the reason I think that I'm not sure you'll ever get to peace with a two-state solution, but I promise with a one-state solution, you never really get to peace, because it's the perception of the Palestinian people that the whole reason that the Jewish state the state of Israel exists, is to get rid of them from the land. And maybe outside the scope of what we want to talk about, but the Israelis have adopted a policy over the last 30 years or so of actively settling in the West Bank territory that was historically Palestinian. And I mean, they're creating retirement communities for American Jews to return to Israel. And, I mean, I'm sure it's good economic development, but if you're people that you're living there and you get moved out of your village so that they can build a retirement home, that's not going to, or a retirement community, it's not going to make people happy.
I don't know. Every time I've talked to others or you dig into the two-state solution, I mean, that's been offered and that's been extended by the Israelis on, I don't know, like 5 times. And every time it's shot down by the Palestinian Authority because, well, no, there can't. If we recognize two states, then we recognize your legitimacy. And so it's like, right, how the hell do you have a negotiation with somebody that won't recognize the fact that you're there? And I feel like it sounds like that's probably the biggest progress. I think that's some of the biggest progress in the current state of the negotiations, is at least not so much the Palestinians, but at least the Gulf states are recognizing Israel's legitimacy. I mean, the fact they're establishing relations with them is pretty
exactly
significant.
maybe we can get out of this nonsense of like, oh, I'm going to pretend you don't exist. Well,
Yeah.
no, they very much exist, and we've got to deal with that. So, um,
But to your point, that's part of the strategy too, perhaps of the Israelis to blur the lines so that there's never a place where you could draw the line
yeah.
and create a state.
Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this is because, and you would expect no less of me. I've looked really hard to find ways to bash Trump in this, and you know, I, I I'm grateful that he's done this and been able to be a part of brokering this.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, and it may not work. I
Right.
just, and I've said it before. I like the fact he's trying stuff, and
Yeah.
even if it doesn't work, it's better than not trying anything. I mean,
Yeah. I think this is the kind of thing where, the U.S. as a convener or as a part of it is just, I don't know, it does. I'm getting a little philosophical here, but, it's funny because even long before Trump started talking about America first, and by that meaning, like, we're not going to just jump into every foreign war that we can. You know, I've said I thought the Iraq War was that was a deal breaker for me with the Republicans. And so I tend to be like, we don't need to be the world's policeman and don't need to fix everything. And kind of despite politics, it's interesting to see like where do you draw that line? And does your opinion change when your guy's in the White House? Yes, I think it does for me. But what's the appropriate level of that, and when do we want to back off, and how do you pick that?
well, and I think there's a difference between diplomatic overtures and conversations and leading agreements and troops. If he says, "Hey, we want to send the 82nd Airborne to parachute into Gaza," I'd have a huge problem with that. But hey, you want to
Yeah.
go to and develop peace treaties? I mean, great. You're not getting people on the ground involved. Um, yeah, it's it was funny because at one point they were talking about some of the behind the scenes in the negotiations, and I thought about this a little bit because I don't know. We've talked about in the past Trump's propensity to inflate or exaggerate or stretch the truth or however you want to characterize that. But they were saying part of the negotiation process, like at one point, and I'm probably screwing this up, so if somebody fact check completely correct, but it was something to the effect that like they're in the middle of negotiations and like Trump's like, well, Hamas, they're all for this and this and this and this. And they were like, no, we didn't say that. Like, why the hell is he saying that? But like, he's using, he's trying to get people to think he's creating a perception, even though it's BS, And so it's like, I thought that was, I don't know. I keyed off on that because I thought, sometimes the BS and the exaggerations are problematic, but, it's kind of like when you're, interrogating a suspect. Oh, we got the other guy. He said he did it, and you did it. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
that in the negotiation, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the again, I mean, I can't believe here I am just like signing on for it. But Trump's utter unpredictability is an advantage in this. I think that all of them perceive that he's got a little bit of a hair trigger, and if they say the wrong thing, if they push back too hard at the table, you don't know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah.
He's going to be on Truth Social 5 minutes later saying that we need to overthrow this guy. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
I think your acknowledgement that this is a good thing is a much more genuine position for you. And I would acknowledge too that, while that approach worked in this situation, it could also backfire. And it has backfired. So it's not certainly without its pitfalls. And I don't think that anybody can look at him and say, like you take the bad with the good. Sometimes there's good that comes out of it. Sometimes there's bad that.
yeah. Well, and even so much as to say, is this a mastermind strategy, or is he is exactly the tool that's needed for this particular Do you know what I mean? Rather than ascribing it to genius, what this really needed is kind of a volatile American president with all the power in the world, but you know, kind of relationships with both sides, and they've all got more to lose by pissing Trump off than they do to gain by perpetuating a bad thing that's been going on for a while.
Well, and my take isn't that, you know, he wrote this in a script as an addendum to Project 2025. Well, here's how we're going to get peace in the Middle East. Like, I think his nature is he likes to engage and spar and negotiate. And you've said it before, he's an opportunist, an opportunist. I think he's looking to find a path and he ideates. And sometimes those ideations work, and sometimes they don't. And I guess that's where my thing is, like, I like the fact he's willing to try, even if he screws it up or doesn't go well. Like, obviously he said he's going to end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. It didn't quite work, but he's trying various things. And I'd rather have that than not trying because, I think diplomacy is kind of like sales or business development or anything else. I mean, a lot of it's failure. You're going to have some successes, but you're going to have a lot of failure.
Yeah. No, I think that's reasonable. What do we have to do to make this ceasefire into something more than cosmetic?
Yeah, it's I really, you wonder if there is one of the things he talked about early on was like, he was like, hey, we're going to build condos and casinos on the Gaza Strip. People are kind of laughing, but like, I think there's a move, and if you think about it, with the Qataris involved and the Gulf states, I think to an extent they've seen the impact of wealth creation as a tool to perhaps stamp out radicalization. And is that a recipe that could work? Could you make this place a money making machine to where, hey, I'd rather make money than be some guy shooting people in the streets? But I mean, that doesn't happen next week. But it does seem like if there could be a pathway to really incentivize, the private enterprise to really grow that could be an anecdote to all these issues someday.
It's a really interesting idea. I mean, to take it seriously like that, and I get it. I wonder, part of the reason people laugh when he talks about doing it is because, I mean, admittedly, you've got a bit of a marketing problem if you open stuff up right now.
Yeah. Well, he did that also in his first term with Kim Jong Un or whatever. They had some video and they were showing, hey, that we could have condos on the water here and hotels. Like, well, I guess he didn't really buy into the vision too much. But
again, like you got your all-inclusive resort. The problem
the
is
beach of Gaza.
Yeah, in the check-in process, well, you're going to fly into Tel Aviv, and then you have
We're going to put a hood over your head and smuggle you in the trunk of a car. Yeah.
Oh man. What about Netanyahu? What do you make of him?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem to be extremely popular, or does he?
No, I think I think he has perpetuated this whole thing to keep himself in power.
That, or is there, I mean, what they've done from taking out Hezbollah, taking out Iran. I mean, you think about the threats they have pretty much completely annihilated. Their hand is a lot more powerful now than it was, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
To get to that point, he's got maybe an unpopular person like him is the only person that can make that happen, because it's nobody's is no better. And I get what you mean in the text. You said like not wanting suffering in Gaza is an anti-Semitism. True, but at the same time, I think the patience for retaliatory attacks by Israel always are a bit muted. internationally. I mean, there's a big population like, well, yeah, they had some attacks, but they just need to settle down and stop attacking people. I guess my point is just I think there's varying degrees of recognition of the level of threat that are posed to them.
Hmm.
And, there's a lot of flack that comes to Netanyahu because he went hard over and took out all these folks. And yes, it's been obviously Gaza situation's an ugly situation, but at the same time, I'm not excusing any ugly thing and children dying and everything else. Getting to this point of weakening all of these entities, though, was going to take a lot of unpopular activity.
Yeah.
Maybe to put it that
It does beg the question to me, um, and this is an interesting question across history for me. The perspective of this a perspective on Gaza that I probably have most resonated with and sort of taken as truth is that Hamas is a unpopular but repressive regime that that the average Palestinian is not wanting to keep this going, but they're overlorded by these, you know, truly evil people. But I say that, and then to be internally consistent, I got to admit that in a lot of
we have
other
no problem
cases,
with the people of Iraq. Yeah,
well, right,
right.
like when do you own responsibility for the government that you've got?
Yeah,
It's related to the topic that we've talked about before that I think is a mistake that, we got these names. We got a guy like Hitler rather than the geopolitical situation of Germany. You know, it is it this one guy? Is it this one group of people, Hamas, or has the will of the Palestinian people needed to change to get to
yeah.
peace? I don't know.
Well, and I think it's the hard part you're dealing with is you've got probably compelling stories on every side. Like you see the atrocities that happened on February 7th. Okay, those were horrible atrocities. There's probably people in Gaza that have seen horrible atrocities also.
Mm-hmm.
And, if somebody killed my kids, screw
Right.
them all. I don't care about
Right.
I don't care about a peace treaty. I'm going to go kill people in any way. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm saying if somebody killed your kid,
You
you talk
follow
about
how
being
people get to that place.
radicalized. I don't think there's a point of return if somebody, you know, horrendously murdered your children. And the problem is in these environments is you got people on both sides that have had these horrendous things happen. So they all have a legitimate beef, but peace at some point is people saying, as bad as this is, I support peace over revenge. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just been so much on every side that everybody's so mad at each other and everybody's exacting revenge. It's like that would take a lot, I would think, to get people to back off of that.
It would.
And I feel, and, I think our society, if you follow everything on social media and everything else, it's all about getting the other guy, the equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
I love the equalizer movies. Well, I'm going to get you because you did this. And it's like getting to peace is hey, if we're going to agree not to kill each other, like we both have to agree that living in peace is more important than getting what is due us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a lot easier for people like us to throw around,
Oh, yeah.
honestly.
Right.
Even the most, I think about 9/11 is the closest world conflict has come to me,
Yeah.
probably. And, I think that in hindsight, okay, yeah, well, that was bad. But it didn't personally affect me. And so it's a lot easier to get to the point where, like, I want to honor the memory of those people that we lost,
Yeah.
but I don't, for their sake, I don't want to get into a situation where we're in another 50 years of conflict with a segment of the world, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't my family member.
Right. And I would think in a place like Gaza, you've got everybody in that place, especially now. I mean, the place is in ruins. I mean, everybody there has a deep personal story of I hate those sons of guns, like because of this, and this. They've all got an example. And,
Yeah.
the Israelis have an example too. They all have examples of these
Yeah.
horrible things. So, what do you do other than annihilate each other? It's just I mean, that's where I feel like this is the fact that we're at this point. Is it because these people are having genuine feelings of peace, or is it really just a power situation? They know that they're defeated and they're going to have to hand over. And I think if it's just that like, yeah, you got us by the what, so here we'll hand over the hostages and we'll make peace. Is that going to be a lasting? I don't think that's a lasting peace.
Yeah, that's the scary thing, right? Like it just goes underground. It just goes underground. Hmm.
I was reading something the other day. Have you heard about the Nigerian persecution of Christians?
No, I have not.
Apparently, that's a huge issue right now. And it's not something that gets a lot of headlines, but they said in the first 200 or so days of 2025, like 7,000 Christians were killed. They're
Hmm.
destroying churches and Christian institutions, homeschools, forced displacement. It's I guess the groups include Boko Haram, Islamic State, West Africa Province, and other armed herder militants. So it's just this ragtag group of militants, but they're, you know, and something like that, like, I mean, if 7,000 anybody got killed,
Right.
it's like it's kind of nutty to me how many conflicts around the world are like that, where thousands of people are getting slaughtered and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and how does something get on the list?
Yeah,
I mean, don't want to go on my conspiratorial rant, but literally, like somebody's making the editorial decision that this is this huge deal over here, and this 7,000 people dying over here. Like we're not gonna
right.
run that anywhere.
Yeah, it seemed like they're. I don't know, whenever I travel internationally, you get somebody like BBC World, and they're doing these reports from like Timbuktu all over the place. And if you look at any U.S. news program, it's all crap that's right here in front of our face. Nobody's thinking about anything happening anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a Ukraine, maybe there's a Gaza, maybe there's a couple of big headlines. But to your point, um, and there's all kinds of horrendous things happening globally, and nobody ever talks about it.
Yeah.
But we talk about Epstein. Plenty of talk about Epstein.
Are you still talking about that guy?
They're still talking about this guy. What's the big deal? It's So let's see. Here's the other countries where at least 1,000 people have been killed this year. Darfur, Western Sudan. There was a landslide that killed 1,000 people. Myanmar. There was an earthquake back in March that killed 5,000 people. These are all. This is Afghanistan. 1,000 people died from an earthquake.
Just
Thousand
think
people.
about that, though. I mean, what 1,000 people die? Well, I'm going to show my ignorance. When was the last time we had a mass casualty event in the U.S. that killed 1,000 people? It probably depends on how you count. Maybe that hurricane that hit like North Carolina. I don't know. But to your point, we just listed a half a dozen mass casualty events in other countries that we didn't nobody heard about.
The biggest one was in 1900. The Galveston hurricane killed 6 to 12,000. And in 1927, a Mississippi flood may have killed up to 1,000 people.
Well, how
But
many people died in Katrina? I mean, you don't have to go all the way back to Galveston, right? Katrina would have been maybe not.
um, yeah, 1,392.
Well,
Yeah,
again, to put it into
1,400
kind
people
of a
died.
geo context, though, right? You just listed off all these 1,000, 5,000. Hurricane Katrina, I mean, 20 years later is this monumental event in the U.S.
And I don't know where you find out about this stuff. I mean, other than Chat GPT. I mean, if you ask,
Yeah.
like nobody's reporting on any of this stuff. And I'm not trying to, make this some point. It's just odd to me that, like you said, there's a select group of things that make the news that people,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're basing it on what's going to impact the most people. There's all kinds of statistics. I'm sure they're basing on what's going to generate, like maybe a massacre in Nigeria, nobody's going to care about, but they're going to care about Israel.
Yeah. But then our outrage follows the news rather than vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. And so we read about this and we're all spun about this, but we're not reading about that. I don't know.
Like
This
these
sounds like a
shoot,
broken record bitching about the media, but really, like 5,000 people killed and just like no mention.
yet 5 people get shot in a nightclub or something, and it's dominate.
Yeah. Let's talk about Comey and Bolton. And I'll say this, that we got to stop this. The political prosecution of enemies. I will fully admit, I think I'm on record of this. Maybe this is before we started doing the podcast. As little as I think of Donald Trump, I think that the civil trial in New York it was unwise. I think he's guilty of it, and I think he's a bad guy. But I think it was a fool's errand to chase after him to that. It was a Pyrrhic victory, and I was of the cases that they prosecuted him for, the one I was most sympathetic to was the classified documents. If I had been given all of the power to decide, I would have prosecuted that case. I would have left the others alone. To that end, if the prosecution can make a case that John Bolton misused classified documents, he ought to pay the penalty for that. And Comey, it sounds like a weak case. If they can prove a case to a jury, I'll support that victory, or I'll support that verdict, whatever it is.
Yeah, I do think the fact a grand jury in a more liberal demographic location said we think there's something here tells me there's something there.
Grand juries are pretty notorious for being easy to manipulate, but there at least must have been the pretense of something worthwhile. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if
No.
he's truly innocent, I think he'll be proven that way.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing that the indictment. I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly to go for the FBI to go busting into some guy's house like they do Bolton or whatever,
Or Trump.
or what?
Or the 50 guys with assault weapons that showed up at, what was that guy, Roger Stone's residence. And CNN happened to be out front when they pulled in with the FBI. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that stuff's BS. I don't like that. I didn't like it when Trump was the target. And don't get me wrong, I think he was guilty of cheating on the bank applications. But I don't think it was in the country's best interests to pursue that. And I think that's been proven to be correct. But you grew up in the same household and I did, and there was this saying that two wrongs don't make a right. So, like, we're not better off now because Trump's going to wreak retribution on James Comey and John Bolton. Look, if that joke of a prosecutor can put together a case and beat Comey and put him in jail, fine. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that no matter what you think of him, Comey's not the kind of guy that is careless with stuff. And I think they're going to have a hard time hanging something on him.
Yeah,
That'd be
in
my
which
guess.
case, maybe there's no foul there. I don't necessarily think the prosecutions, prosecute but when you see the case, is there a case to be made? Is it legitimate or not? I don't know. May not be. But
I guess the thing is,
well.
though, their private citizen has no recourse, right? That's the part that bothers me is, I don't know, what do you sue the Justice Department for malicious prosecution? The thing is that he's got the money to pay for the defense that he's going to have. What happens to people that don't have the money?
Yeah.
right? That's where this kind of thing goes really south. It's because yeah, he'll be acquitted. I will buy you an expensive bottle of bourbon if James Comey goes to prison for this.
Okay. All right.
I'll be on
That
record
sounds
with
like
that.
a wager. That's good. I'll get you.
Yeah,
I'll get you a rum.
I think uh, I think Bolton might be a little more careless. They might be able to slap something together on
Well, they
Bolton.
said with him, his memoirs had classified information in it. So, like, oh, that's probably
Yeah,
not wise to publish.
yeah, but we'll see.
And
But
interestingly, on him, that case originally that originated in the Biden administration, but the Biden Justice Department, they decided not to prosecute. So, to some extent, it was almost like the decision not to prosecute was because he was a Trump critic.
yeah, well, okay, but so let me ask you this, and this is, I don't know, maybe this is now I'm getting away from my nice words about Trump at
Well,
Gaza.
we got to argue. Can't This show is about friendly arguments? If we're not arguing, we're doing it wrong.
So let me ask you this: if you really believe that there's a case against James Comey, what, why act like it's the persecution of an enemy? Why tell people I'm going to go after my political enemies because they're my political like why not even give the veneer of well he was in a position of authority and there were things that he did that needed to be like there's no even pretense.
I'm going to drain the swamp.
Okay.
That's what people voted for.
Yeah.
They see
But
him as
that's
a
not what
symbol
he's
of that.
talking about now because it's all about he's my enemy.
Yeah.
You know, it's a subtle difference, but I think it's an important one. Drain the swamp implies that I'm going to get rid of people that are hurting the American people because of their entrenched deep state, whatever you got, right? The the reason given for pursuing these people is that they criticize Trump.
Yeah.
That just seems tacky to me.
Well, I agree with you. I do think the decisions around the Trump collusion investigation and the use of the hit piece from Clinton's campaign, I think that's a huge scandal. And I think Comey's got his hands deep into that. But I think,
That's
to your
not what they're
point,
trying him for what it's worth.
yeah. And that's what I'm saying. To your point, if I was Trump, I would not have gone down the path he went down. Instead, I'd go down the path of like he's wrapped up in this awful thing, and we need to get to the bottom of it. But I will also concede that sticking to the message isn't Trump's strong point.
Well, and I'll throw you another wrench in the thing. Instead of saying we're going to go after Comey because he criticized the president and I think he's a bad guy, and why didn't they prosecute him for the Russia collusion? In fact, why has nobody been prosecuted for that? Why has there been nothing about that? Is it possible, Kyle, that there are factual errors in the Steele dossier, but there's some truth there and there's more than anybody wants to talk about? If
Somebody
I'm,
really pissed on the bed, is what you're saying?
well, I mean, if I'm accused of using this thing to defraud and that's my crime, the very best defense I could put forward is, well, no, there's some truth stuff in there. And, you know, probably don't want to stick my neck out and say, I think it was all true. And I think that they found a couple of false things and made it up, but there's a lot of truth in it. I don't know. Maybe.
Well,
Nobody's
there's
been
also,
prosecuted.
yeah, but I mean, part of the problem too is a lot of the people who it appears their hands were the dirtiest are, Obama. That's, are you going to die in that hill? I don't know. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that jumped on this thing at high levels, and I don't know how much of that is criminal and how much of that is just scandalous.
Yeah. Well, it seems like if it was as bad a deal as it's painted, somebody ought to get prosecuted.
I
And we ought
agree.
to have depositions on this thing. We ought to have a process of discovery. We ought to get documents about things that happened and make sure that all of it's false.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It certainly seems like there's a lot to dig into there. Maybe they need like the January 6th commission. Maybe Matt Getz could chair a commission, Kent, on the, or I don't know. He's no longer in Congress, but I'm trying to think who would be the antithesis of Liz Cheney. John Fetterman can chair the, when's he going to be a Republican?
I don't know. I saw something that the Democrats were coming for him. I like people that don't drink the entire Kool-Aid of the party. Both sides. I think it's healthy. I'm gonna say it. Marjorie Taylor Greene has, the list of my critiques of her is long, but she's been making some statements, and the Epstein thing was a big deal to her. She said,
Yeah.
this is bad, and we can't do that. And now she's like ostracized. But I give props to anybody who pushes back against their party.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I really am still not satisfied on that whole debacle. We can't keep talking about it every week, but
No, boy, it would be so easy to make it go away. I can't get past that. That's the part I can't get past.
we have released all documentation that we're legally authorized to release, Kent. And why haven't we heard more about this UFO thing too that congressman was talking about? That's gone quiet.
Tell me more there.
You remember we talked a couple of weeks ago about that congressman from, I think, Arizona, who was on that congressional committee, and they got shown evidence of something that isn't of this world. And oddly, nobody's talking about that anymore. fell off the landscape pretty quickly. The trilateral is calling the shots here. They're like, well, no, go back to.
I didn't read the article, but I heard some company's R&D department took credit for all the New Jersey drones.
Yeah, I did see that. Yes, some government contractor. Yeah. Okay.
That's still kind of an unsatisfying explanation. Like, okay, no problem. It was a private contractor for the Defense Department flying drones in all these people's backyards.
In the way the article read, it was something like, well, the company's anonymous. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, it's an anonymous company. This Jim Smith from a company that supposedly exists. Like, what?
They just write it off.
That's right. You even know what that means? Well, they do, and they're the ones writing it off.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole UFO thing. I'm listening to a book right now, book on tape, and this guy, he weaves together this narrative. It started at Roswell. There was a commission that got together and said, we're going to, the deep state said, we're going to bury this thing. And that just stretches my imagination.
It's back to our dad's thing always was like, they're just not capable of holding together a story. I mean, if there was something that salacious, somebody somewhere is going to spill the.
Well, don't you think even the airman first class who drives a forklift in the warehouse at Wright-Patterson is going to tell his girlfriend if he's moving alien bodies, right?
It's funny because I was stationed at Wright-Pat, and there was I had a friend who worked in public affairs, and she was like, we get like a dozen calls a day. Open the hangar now. We know you've got it in there.
Which probably means that somebody's first job in PR for the Air Force at Wright-Patterson was okay, so what am I going to do for my 2.5-year assignment here? Well, you're going to
introduce you to this
phone.
group over here.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.